It's a lifelong passion, Con, I promise you. You know, I grew up motorcycles, cars, music, three things that I grew up in, and I'm blessed enough to be able to continue to do all three of those things and pay the bills with it.
Behind the chrome and the roar of engines, a $2.7 million legal nightmare was quietly dismantling Danny Koker's TV empire. While fans saw the Count grinning over classic builds, a 2021 avalanche of lawsuits and a $50,000 Mustang scam turned the dream into a legal bomb. The cognitive dissonance was real. TV glamour on screen, but chaos, theft, and lawsuits behind the scenes. Let's tell the untold scandals that finally killed the show and the shop's secret survival. Chrome dreams turn nightmare. Back in 2012, if you were a car person, Danny Koker was the man. He was the breakout star from Pawn Stars.
Danny, from your various different things, first got introduced to the Pawn Stars fans.
Yeah.
Kind of a spin-off of Pawn Stars, a recurring expert from our show.
Absolutely.
Who had a shop.
Yeah.
Now you have your own TV show.
The guy who could spot a classic from 3 blocks away and convince the owner to sell it right there on the curb. When the History Channel gave him his own spin-off, Counting Cars, it felt like a sure bet. Count's Customs became a Vegas landmark overnight. The vibe was pure rock and roll. Bandanas, chrome, and a crew that seemed more like a family than a staff. But while the cameras were capturing high fives and engine revs, the actual business side of the shop was starting to smoke like a blown head gasket. Here's where it gets messy. Imagine you're a couple in Vegas, you love the show, and you have a 1967 Mustang that's your absolute pride and joy. You hand it over to the most famous shop in town, expecting that TV quality restoration. That's exactly what happened in 2014, and it became the first major crack in the Count's armor. This couple didn't just walk in, they handed over $50,000. Think about that for a second. That's not a budget build. That's a small fortune meant to turn a classic into a masterpiece. Now here's the thing about TV builds. They usually happen fast because the network needs a season. But for this couple, the months turned into a year. And when they finally pushed for their car, it wasn't a shining piece of Americana. It was essentially a rusted shell. They alleged that despite the $50,000 payment, the car was sitting unfinished, stripped, and neglected. It never made it to the screen. It was a $50,000 nightmare that ended in a lawsuit, claiming the shop had essentially taken the money and stalled indefinitely. And get this, it wasn't an isolated incident. While the show was at its peak, behind the scenes, a pattern was forming. Other clients started whispering about delays and overcharges that didn't match the breezy, "we'll get it done by Friday" attitude Danny projected on TV. You see, the glamour of being a celebrity mechanic is great for marketing, but it's terrible for a production line. When you're spending half your day filming takes and the other half managing a massive crew, the actual cars on the lifts can start to suffer. Ever trusted a shop with your baby and regretted it? There's nothing quite like the heartbreak of seeing your project car sitting under a tarp while the shop owner is out becoming a superstar. For Danny, the 2014 suit was a warning shot, a sign that the TV hype was creating expectations the shop wasn't built to meet. But one lawsuit's a fluke. You might even call it a misunderstanding in a high-stress industry. But wait till you hear about the trusted insider who was allegedly bleeding the shop dry from the inside. One thing is certain, the chrome dreams were already turning into a logistical nightmare, and the legal avalanche was only just getting started. The $75,000 thief in the garage. When you're running a shop that's being filmed for millions of people, you expect the drama to stay in front of the lens. You expect the family vibe Danny Koker preached to be the literal glue holding the garage together. But in 2017, The glue didn't just fail, it dissolved. Here's the thing about the TV business. Sometimes the biggest crooks aren't the ones you're haggling with over a rusted frame. Sometimes they're the ones sitting in the air-conditioned office with access to your bank account. Counts Customs found this out the hard way when they discovered that Joseph Frontiera, a man hired through a staffing agency to handle their books, had been treating the shop's account like his personal lottery win. Now, here's where it gets interesting. We aren't just talking about a few missing 20s from the till. Frontiera was allegedly siphoning off massive chunks of change, $75,000 to be exact. And get this, he wasn't even being subtle about it. He used that stolen cash to pay for a personal Range Rover and cross-country airline tickets, all while the guys in the back were sweating over welding torches to keep the shop profitable. But wait, it actually gets weirder. Not only was he buying luxury SUVs with Danny's money, but he also allegedly failed to pay the shop's taxes on time. This triggered an $18,000 IRS penalty that the shop had to eat. Imagine the pure disbelief in that room when Danny realized that the guy he trusted to keep the lights on was actually inviting the taxman to shut them down. When the shop finally dug into his background, they found something that should have been caught on day one. Frontiera had a prior conviction for felony second-degree grand theft in Florida. Literally a professional at making money disappear. And he was handed the keys to the kingdom because of a massive background check failure. Think about that for a second. In the rush to scale up for the History Channel, the shop's operational security completely collapsed. They sued Frontiera and the staffing agency, Randstad, for negligence. But the damage to the Counts Customs culture was already done. You can't just lose 75 grand and an IRS fine without people starting to look at each other sideways. And if you're wondering why Scott Jones, the legendary bookkeeper and Danny's right-hand man, suddenly vanished after the second season, this financial chaos is the smoking gun. While the official story was that Scott moved to Tennessee, the timing suggests he saw the writing on the wall. He saw the cracks in the ledger before the 2017 bomb even went off. And he chose to bail rather than go down with a sinking ship. It's an uncomfortable truth, but even family shops hire unchecked crooks under the crushing pressure of a TV production schedule. You're so focused on the next reveal that you forget to check who's writing the checks. Would you hire an ex-con to handle your books if you were under that kind of stress? Comment yes or no below, because I'm genuinely curious where you'd draw the line. While the show tried to keep the gloss on with high-energy soundtracks and shiny paint jobs, the internal strain was becoming impossible to hide. The money was bleeding out, the trust was evaporating, and the stars were starting to look for the exit. But here's the thing. While the money woes were mounting and the legal battles were heating up, the fans noticed something else. The chemistry was changing. It wasn't just about the cash anymore. When the fan favorites started walking away, everyone started asking, was Rolly's exit the real chemistry killer that finally broke the show? Everything was about to get a whole lot louder, and not in a good way. Stars vanish, drama fades. Here's the thing about reality TV. They're usually the first thing to break when the money gets funny. You can have the coolest cars and the loudest exhausts, but if the people on screen don't want to be in the same room anymore, the audience is going to feel that tension through their TV. And for Counting Cars, that tension started manifesting as a series of vanishing acts that left fans completely baffled. The most shocking of all? The disappearance of Rolly Sabo. Rolly was the Hungarian detailer who provided the heart and the humor of the shop. He was the guy who could make a dirty fender look like a mirror, while cracking jokes that kept the mood light. But after season 6, he was just gone. Now, the internet is a wild place, and the rumors started flying immediately. Some people claimed he was fired for a trailer fire that supposedly destroyed customer cars, while others thought there was some massive blow-up with Danny. But here's where it gets interesting. The truth is actually way more chill, but also more telling about the state of the shop. Rolly actually left voluntarily to focus on his own travel and detailing business. He's posted on social media since then, the last showing he's still on good terms with the crew. But he'd clearly had enough of the TV circus. But wait, it gets weirder. Rolly wasn't the only one walking out the door. Think about Scott Jones, the guy we mentioned earlier who handled the books. When he left back in Season 2, it left a massive vacuum in the shop's management. Then you had Kevin Mack, Danny's right-hand man, whose presence started to feel different as the seasons dragged on. When you lose the people who actually know how to run the business side, you're left with a shop that's basically a movie set with no director. Now, here's the thing about the show's later seasons. You could see the fatigue. The plots started feeling recycled. How many times can you randomly pull over a stranger on the Las Vegas Strip and offer to buy their car before the audience realizes the whole thing is choreographed? The magic was being replaced by a formula, and the ratings started to reflect that. It wasn't a sudden crash, but a subtle, steady dip. The family was fracturing under the weight of those $75,000 thefts and the internal mismanagement we talked about. It's an uncomfortable truth. TV families rarely survive real-world money fights. When the trust is gone, the chemistry follows it right out the door. I've got to ask, do you think a Rolly return would have saved the show, or was the damage already too serious? Think about the position Danny was in. He's trying to maintain this rock star persona while his best detailer is gone. His bookkeeper has bailed, and the History Channel is breathing down his neck for more content. The show was becoming a shell of itself. They were trying to manufacture the old energy, but you can't fake chemistry when the bank accounts are being drained by insiders and the lawsuits are starting to pile up at the front gate.
According to reports, the Hertz allege that Scott Jones, an employee at Counts Customs, assured them that the shop could purchase and rebuild a 1967 Ford Mustang coupe for $50,000, expecting the restoration to be completed by December 2013. Since Counts Customs could not complete the job on time and had used a different vehicle, the couple was forced to file a lawsuit alleging fraud and breach of contract.
By the time 2021 rolled around, the cast was gutted. The shop was still standing, and Danny was still grinning for the cameras. But the foundation was made of sand. The fans were noticing the exits. The stories were getting stale, and the energy was just off. They had survived the embezzlement. They had survived the early Mustang scandals, and they had survived the departure of their biggest stars. They thought they had seen the worst of it. But they were wrong, because while the cast was vanishing and the drama was fading, a massive legal tsunami was forming in the background. And this time, it wasn't just one disgruntled couple with a Mustang. It was a $2.7 million kill shot that was about to end the TV dream for good. Lawsuit avalanche buries the show. By 2021, Counting Cars wasn't ending with a bang. It was ending in silence. No farewell episode, no official History Channel statement, just nothing after Season 10 wrapped in December. And if you were only watching the show, it felt strange. Ratings hadn't cratered. Danny Koker was still smiling on screen. The shop still looked busy. So why did it stop? Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Around the same time Season 10 faded out, a much darker story started circulating off-camera. Not in glossy TV promos, not in press releases, but in online court chatter, automotive forums, and long YouTube breakdowns that fans usually ignore. The claim was explosive. A wave of lawsuits in 2021 involving multiple former clients, all alleging variations of the same thing. massive overcharges, unfinished builds, and projects that dragged on far beyond what was promised. The most repeated figure was 17 clients, collectively claiming about $2.7 million in damages, with accusations that some builds ballooned to nearly 300% over original estimates, while cars sat incomplete. Alongside that, the same sources claimed legal costs alone were pushing $1.2 million. Those numbers didn't come from the History Channel or mainstream news. They came from people digging into filings, lawyer chatter, and independent investigations shared online, especially in long-form YouTube reports that went viral among hardcore fans. Now, pause for a second. Whether every number is exact or not, the pattern is the point. Multiple clients, similar complaints, same time frame, and critically, all of it is peaking right as the show quietly disappears. Here's the thing about television networks. They don't wait for verdicts. They don't need guilt proven beyond doubt. They operate on risk. And lawsuits, especially clusters of them, are radioactive. Every episode becomes potential evidence. Every on-screen joke about budgets or deadlines suddenly looks bad in a courtroom. Even if the network isn't legally responsible, they don't want their brand anywhere near a growing legal mess. So instead of canceling the show loudly, History Channel does what networks often do in these situations. They ghost. No announcement, no renewal, no explanation. The show just doesn't come back. And these lines up perfectly with how Counting Cars ended. Season 10 finishes airing in late 2021. After that, nothing. No Season 11 teaser. No production leaks. No, we'll be back next year. Just a hard stop. Now here's where the story takes a turn that most Counting Cars fell off videos completely miss. Because if this was really the collapse of Count's Customs, if Danny Koker was financially wrecked or running from scandal, you'd expect the shop to shrink. Close bays, lay low, go quiet. Instead, reports in the automotive press paint a different picture. According to Top Speed, Count's Customs remained operational well after the show ended, publicly debunking rumors that the business had shut down or collapsed. Danny didn't retreat. He doubled down. The same reporting points to millions invested into shop upgrades and facilities after the TV cameras stopped rolling. Not the move of someone running for cover, more like someone cutting loose a liability. Think about that for a second. If you're facing ongoing legal pressure tied to custom builds, the last thing you want is a production schedule forcing rushed timelines, dramatic edits, and unrealistic expectations. Reality TV is great marketing until it becomes a magnifying glass. And once lawyers get involved, that magnifying glass turns into a weapon. Here's the uncomfortable truth no one wants to say out loud. Shows like this don't end because viewers stop watching. They end because the risk outweighs the exposure. And by 2021, the legal noise around Count's Customs was loud enough that staying on TV stopped making sense. Midway through all this, ask yourself something. If you were running a business, and every camera angle could be subpoenaed, and every joke replayed in court, would you keep filming? Or would you quietly step away, let the show die and focus on rebuilding on your own terms? That's the move Danny appears to have made. End the show. Keep the shop. Control the narrative again. So yes, Counting Cars died in 2021, but not because it failed. It died because it became too dangerous to keep alive. But where we go next holds most of the mystery. Because if the show died under legal pressure, the real question is the one nobody asks. The cameras stopped rolling, but did the shop actually go down with it? Off-camera revival no one saw. Here's the thing that most YouTube Where Are They Now videos get completely wrong. They assume that because the cameras stopped rolling, the business must have died. But in the world of high-stakes Vegas business, the exact opposite is true. As we sit here in 2026, Count's Customs isn't just a memory. It's a thriving, diversified empire that arguably works better without the History Channel breathing down its neck. Danny Koker did something most reality stars are too terrified to do. He let the show die to let the business live. By 2025 and into this year, it became clear that the cancellation was actually a massive strategic win. Without the constant pressure of 22-minute miracle builds, the shop was finally able to dig itself out of that $2.7 million legal hole. They settled the suits, tightened up their background checks, remember our friend Frontiera, and got back to the actual craft of car building. But wait, it gets even more interesting. Danny didn't just stay in the garage. He leaned into his other passions, specifically his rock band, Count's 77. They've been touring and performing at his own venue, Count's Vamped Rock Bar and Grill, which remains a Vegas staple. He's also still running his tattoo shop. He realized that being a TV personality made him a target, but being a Vegas mogul made him a legend.
Hi, my name's Danny Koker. My friends call me Count. It's a nickname that goes back for years now. And you're sitting in my shop. This is Count's Customs. We're right here in the heart of Las Vegas, and we build crazy choppers.
The uncomfortable truth here is that many TV families are better off camera. The end of Counting Cars allowed Danny to stop being a character and start being a boss again. The shop's pivot was underrated. While fans were mourning the show, Danny was building a legacy that didn't require a production crew to be valid. He's still spotting classics on the street, he's still painting masterpieces, and he's still the Count, just without the 300% overcharge drama that the TV spotlight invited. Was this a genius pivot to save his brand, or a missed chance to become the biggest car name in the world? Share your thoughts below. Remember that $2.7 million legal bomb I mentioned at the start? It was meant to be the kill shot. But looking at the shop today, it was just a fire that forged a stronger business. Danny Koker took the hit, paid the price, and stayed in the game. In the end, the real reason Counting Cars ended wasn't just because of the lawsuits. It was because Danny chose the shop over the show. And in the world of custom cars, the shop is the only thing that actually matters. Counting Cars didn't end on TV. It ended when lawsuits turned cameras into liabilities. The shop pivoted and survived into 2025. Was this a curse or a blessing? Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below.